Hi, in this demonstration, we're going to access Practice Lab where we generate our practice returns. We're going to generate a practice return, and I'm going to show you just some basic navigation through the software itself. And so we're on our sign-in screen. Again, the password here is the generic Train Pro Web, all in capital letters. Now we're on the actual sign-in screen. Oops. There it is. My password. And sign in. There's the Practice Lab homepage. I go to Practice Area, and now we're in Practice Lab. Now we want to generate a new return. And right here it says Start Return. We can select it here. We can click anywhere in this row here, if you will. And so I'm going to do that. So the way we start a return to generate one is to input the taxpayer's Social Security number. The taxpayer here, I have the intake and interview call review sheet. I'm going to use lesson 3 income section of the self-study document. And these are the Sanchez's. So I'm going to key in for Neva, who shows as the taxpayer, 215. Notice zeros. Zeros in the Practice Lab, we use those. They indicate that it's not a valid return. It's just a practice return. So all of our returns while we're practicing should have zeros in the middle section of the Social Security number. Now her last is 6,400. And then we go down here, we key in. So suppose we key in the wrong number. Now it's going to come up and say, hey, they don't match. They need a match. So I need to go back here. I need to change this back to the actual number. Over here, it's they match. I can now start the return. And a return has now been generated, if you will, the beginnings of the return. Now, it asks first for filing status. Wants to know, is there another taxpayer to add on here? Are there potentially dependents? We'll see in a minute. But we're told it's married filing jointly. There's a filing status wizard. You can go in there and walk through at your own leisure. I don't want to do it today. We'll all learn which filing statuses to choose properly. It's married filing jointly. We're told continue saves. If you say cancel, it goes back. If you say continue, it saves. Here's the personal information. This is on the intake booklet, which we're provided. So it's never. I always like to key things in capital letters. It makes it neater when you're looking for client, when you do a client search. Last name is Sanchez. There's no middle initial. There's the Social Security number we already keyed in. Date of birth. Date of birth is 7/8/62. Occupation, it tells us, clerk. I'm not going to go through these questions. We'll learn about these, but it's asking if they can be claimed as a dependent. If on, as an example, if on the intake booklet it said that they checked the box that said they want to contribute $3 to the Presidential Election Campaign Fund, we would check that saying, yep, they want to. I'll skip the rest of these for now, though, just to get the return generated. Spouse's first name. Spouse's first name is Miguel. Now notice, it keys in automatically the same last name as the taxpayer. If Miguel's last name were different, we would need to change it here. So watch for that. He has no middle initial that's provided. Social Security number for Miguel is 1150000. Right? And date of birth. His date of birth is 1/15/65. Well, I put it in before, to tell you the truth. I did this once before, so there it is. I can just take it. Retired or teacher. Well, I had keyed this in before. He's a teacher. Again, skip the questions. Now it's going to get down to address. It'll ask if they had stateside military or foreign address. It's not. They live in the United States. It is 2023. There's no apartment, zip code. We're going to use the zip code. I'm going to use a different, I use for Cambridge. City and town. When I click on that, it automatically populates Cambridge, Mass. Daytime phone number. That's provided on here. The daytime phone number is 804-555-1234. And there's the daytime. If there was another one provided, if the taxpayer had one and the spouse had one, we could put them both in. If they provide email address, we could put them in as well. They did. I'm not going to, yeah, let's key it in. Eva at email dot xxx. There it is. And now we're finished with the entry at this point. So we're going to say continue. Again, continue is the equivalent of save. If we said cancel or back, would not save whatever we've input. So I'm going to say continue. Message for that. And now it's coming up with Massachusetts. Massachusetts requires health insurance. And so in these returns, it'll come up and ask you, just say no. It's going to say then, has your name changed from the prior year return? No. And then we'll say continue. So again, we're skipping that for now. Dependents or qualifying persons. I didn't look at this close enough. I'm going to say no, we don't have any, they don't have any dependents. And then say continue. So we're now in their return. We can now input at this point income or any other information. That's appearing because over here in the left are selections. There's basic information. We just did that. So we could click on basic information. We could go off of filing status if it needs to change. If the personal information we just entered, we would go here. Here's a good one, identity protection. Now again, we could select it here or we could go here. I'll go over here and say begin. If they had an identity PIN that was provided on the intake booklet, let's say the taxpayer had one, 6 digits, we would put it in. Let's put it in. Maybe Miguel doesn't have one. So we've keyed that in. We say continue. It's now saved. Shows that the identity PIN is in there. Continuing down, federal section. There's income. Here are deductions. Oops, deductions. Then there are other taxes, payments and estimates, and miscellaneous forms. I'm not going to go through them today. What we want to do today is just familiarize you with how to navigate through here. There's a health insurance section. There's a state section when we do state returns. There's also something called summary print. Let's take a look at that. If I want to see the status of the return at any point while I'm entering data or information, then I can click on the summary print. It'll show me what their tax return looks like to this point in time. Now, we haven't entered anything in here, right? We haven't entered any W-2 information or any dividend information or anything like that, but we can see that there are their names, there's the social security numbers, their ages actually appear here, the address, they're married filing jointly, digital assets, we said by default, no, we didn't indicate that. If they had any, they would have indicated that on their intake sheet, and I'm looking at it now, it says no. If they had any dependents that we had entered, they would show up here. Here's the income section. Again, nothing's been entered yet. It's clean. Nothing, except down here. It shows us $27,700. What's that? Well, that is the standard deduction for married filing jointly return. So it's automatically populated in there. There's nothing else on the return besides those numbers thus far. Over here on the right, as we input documents, you'll see the adjusted gross income. That'll change. The federal amount of tax, if it's in green, it's either they owe 0, as it is here, or it's a refund. The state will show here as well. Now, these will be running totals. In the past, we would sit with the taxpayers and generate their returns, and they would watch these, and as we're inputting documents, if there was a lot of income, when you first put it in before putting any tax withheld or what have you, these numbers would run up big into the red and they would say, hey, what's going on? So one way to, if anyone is ever sitting near you, you can say collapse menu and it will close those out. So you can go and generate the return, not have to worry about somebody seeing those. We don't generate returns, at least at our site, we don't generate returns with the taxpayers sitting there. We interview them, we collect the information we need, we generate it, and then they're interviewed and walk through the return with the quality reviewer. So you should be able to watch this as you're generating the return. If something looks way out of shape over here, like somebody all of a sudden, or at the end owes $10,000, you did something probably wrong in the return. Anyway, moving along, we're going to talk about notes. Up here at the top, there are some things here, but the only one I really want to get into today are notes. If you're a tax counselor and there's something you really need to pass on or should pass on to that quality reviewer who's going to review the return you've generated, or for future reference, like next year, 2 years from now, what have you, someone needs to be made aware of something, then you can generate a note that's captured along with the return. Note name, you can call it what you want. I'll call it W-2 stuff. And then I can go in here and I can key in the text for it, key in whatever I want, save it. I'm not going to save this, but this just shows you how you include a note, and you can make multiple notes, as many as you want, and include those. Okay, I want to go back to this section over here. So we need to enter a W-2. We know we have 2 W-2s actually for the Sanchez's. I'm going to show you how to enter one. And there are a couple ways of doing that. We know it's a W-2. Well, we're in here. Where the heck do I find the W-2 form? Well, I find the W-2 form in 2 ways. If I know it's in federal section, I go to federal section, and I can look for sub under here. We know W-2's income, and guess what? There it is, W-2. Other forms of income are shown here. We won't go through them in this demo. I can go here and click on W-2, and it'll open up a form for me to enter a W-2. But I can also go up here. It says Form Finder. And in here, I can key in W-2, and up come 2 actually forms. The one at the bottom is W-2G, and that's for gambling winnings, loss, or winnings. Form W-2, wage and tax, that's the one we want. So I can go here and select it, or I can key in the form if I don't know how to find it. Where is it? I'm going to select it from here. It's now opened up a W-2 for me, wage and tax statement. Whose is it? I'm going to put in, you have to specify, it's a joint return. I'm going to put in the one for Miguel. There's one for Miguel. He's the spouse. Is it a standard or corrected? Well, nothing's indicated on here that it's corrected or a substitute or anything else. It's a standard W-2 I have. What's the employer information? Well, there's an employee identification number. It's up at the top of the W-2, and it's 25 523 4567. And when I key that in, if this employer has been entered before, it can populate then, automatically populate information like the name, the address of the employer, and so forth. I don't have to key that in again, which is great. Over on the right is the employee information, and it has the address for that person and so forth. That's Miguel. Down here, now it says wages, tips, and other compensations. Here's where we get into entering what we see on the form. So in the first box for Miguel, it says $20,530 and 20 cents. Now, when I key that in, a couple of things happen. The Social Security wages and Medicare assume it's the same as the wages, tips, and other compensation. You got to watch out. In this case, it's not. These actually will need to go in and change because it's 21,010.27 here, and we need to change it here as well. 21,010.27. Now, alternate way of doing this would have been coming in, keying in the Medicare wages here, and that would populate, and then you just change 1. Now, another thing to watch for, notice the cents. It's got cents on all these. You can key it in. What it's going to do when we save this, it's going to round up or down with the cents. In this case, 20 cents or 27 cents, that's actually 20. It's going to round down to the nearest dollar. So it's going to be $10. So $21,010. If it's 49 cents or less, it rounds down. If it's 50 cents or more, it rounds up. So you'll see that this will round down to $20,530. This will round down to $21,010, same as here. Federal income tax withheld. Well, that's in box 2, and it shows $2,200. Social Security is automatically calculated based on Social Security wages. 1364 on here, it actually shows 62 here. Doesn't make any difference. It's going to get rounded up to 1303. Medicare is calculated. It's exactly matches what's on the W-2 form. There's nothing in boxes 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, but there is in box 12. Box 12, 12A, we have a DD on the W-2. So I'm going to go in here, select DD, there it is, and now I'm going to put in the amount. And the amount is $4,734.53. Again, I could round it up myself. I'll key it in for now. Is there another item? And there is in box 12, this case 12B, it's D, just a single D. I'm going to key in the D. What's the amount? It's $480. I'm not going to go through what these are. The only thing to remember is what you see is what you type in. What I'm seeing on here is what I've typed in. There are no other items in box 12. Anything in 13. I look at 13, it's 3 boxes. None of those are checked, so I'm done with that. Box 14, there's nothing. Here's the state and local. On this W-2, there's no information for state and local, so I just leave that alone. Now, what I always do personally is I go in, and before I save it, I just do a quick double check on the numbers. I'll always go back and say, yeah, is this 20,530? Yep. Is this 21, whatever? Yep. Is this 2,200? Yep. And so forth. Then I will go in and say continue. Now you can do it at the bottom. You can do it at the top, wherever you're closest to. So if I wanted to enter another, and on this return, there is another, I would say save and enter another. It would save this one and open up a new one for me. But I'm going to say continue. Continue, again, will save this W-2 for Miguel. And when I save it, it now shows spouse, and there's the W-2. I'm going to go back in here. If you want to edit, you click on the edit. If you want to delete this, caution, if you want to delete it, you just click on the little trash barrel and it will delete it. I want to go in and look at this. Remember we put in the pennies and I told you it would round up and down? Well, it did. It rounded this down to 30. It rounded it down to $10. Same here. It took up the pennies off of any pennies that were over here as well. Anything that was in here, it created, 500. This was 53 cents in the amount for the 12ADD code. It rounded that. 480 was the rounded amount, so it's correct. Anyway, it's already saved. I can just say cancel, or I could say continue again. Let me show you what happens if you say save and enter another. It, in fact, would open another one. I could then say it's the taxpayers. If it was Neva's, I could say it's, and then I could enter her W-2 information. Not going to do it. I'm going to cancel. We've entered one. I'm going to say continue here. I'm now back to the income screen. So we've entered that. Now, what else can we do? So for now, that's how you're going to enter a W-2. If you want to give you a little heads up, if you want to enter income for interest, where's interest income? It's going to be somewhere in here, right? Somewhere in here. And if you look at it, there it is right there, interest income, dividend income, and so forth. If we wanted to, it would be entered here. We'll show you how to do that in another demo. What else can we do? What we can look at is, what's the status of the return at this point in time? Well, at this point in time, there's the tax return summary. And there's the 1040. There are their names. There are their Social Security numbers. Filing status is checked jointly. They didn't indicate they had any digital assets. I'm looking at their intake form, and they checked no. If they had any dependents that show up here, income, there's income. There's income, $20,530 of income. There, in this line, is their standard deduction. It automatically populated that, showing their deductions that. If they had no other income, then their taxable income would be zero. You take this deduction away from that income, gives you zero. I want to show you that up here for the Form 1040 are 8 pages. The first one's the one we're looking at. It's this 1040 right here, first page. If we want to see the second page of it, we click on the 2. There's the second page of it. By the way, right now, the refund they're going to get is $2,482. But page 3, these are the schedules, these next 6 pages. Schedule 1 is going to be pages 3 and 4. Schedule 2 is 5 and 6, and Schedule 3 is 7 and 8. So right here, I could look at Schedule 1 if I wanted to. I could look at the first page, the second page. We're not going to go through these here. 5 and 6 is Schedule 2, 7 and 8. You can see a Schedule 3 first page, Schedule 3 last page. Now, if I want to see the entire return with everything, I go up to View, Print Return, because there could be other schedules, there could be other attachments here, documents that are generated, and I'm going to say View, Print, Return. And it's going to generate a PDF. It says print your return. I'm not printing it, I'm just printing an image of that return. So we say print it, and here's the return. This cover sheet, it shows what forms are generated. So you can see here, here's the W-2 we entered. Forget about what everything else is, but the 1040, and then there's the W-2, and anything else that were generated, any type of forms that generated worksheets would be here. There's their information. It's showing now federal, there's nothing we've entered for Massachusetts yet. There's total income. There's their refund due right there, $2,482 as of this point in time. There's a W-2. It generates a copy of that based on what was input. There's the 1040. I'm not going to run through it just to show you. It generates all that. There's Schedule A that was generated, but not going to worry about any of that. That's a different view. You can see here you should be able to see the entire return. I'm going to get out of here. So we showed you that. We've shown you how to look at just the actual summary at any point in time while you're in the return. You can see now the adjusted gross income. All we put in was Miguel's, showing $20,530. That was his W-2 wages. What's his federal refund? As of now, it's $2,482. The state refund showing $113. We won't worry about that now, but there's the running summary of what it looks like. So that's been a demo to show you how to set up a return, how to put in W-2 wages, and kind of navigation through the Tax-Aide Pro. You'll get really familiar with this as you do more and more of these, and that is the demo for now.